actions or events happened in your life that led you to becoming the founder and creator and CEO of Pride Certified?
So Pride Certified is an organization that helps identify which businesses are, you know, which businesses are committed to creating inclusive and allied environments for LGBTQ2S plus individuals. So it really comes down to businesses, many who of which are already doing these things, but need to be identified, and the community needs to be able to find out which ones they can go to and can be supported and won't face any level of discrimination at. When I first thought of this idea, I've worked in the hospitality industry for a long time, and I've faced my fair share of discrimination, whether it was due to being a woman, or whether it was sexism, or whether it was due to being gay. I have found different environments brought on more discrimination than others, and when you work somewhere or when you go somewhere where it's just not at all acceptable, it's very evident about how the environment changes and how people treat you differently, or try to treat you better, or even to the best of their knowledge. So Pride Certified became this positioning where it was a little bit about training businesses on how to educate their employees on how to help LGBTQ2S individuals, but also how to, also identifying what those businesses are. So people like myself would know where to go, or trans friends of mine would know where to go, whether if they're booking wedding venues, places that we're going to accept them, we're going to welcome them, we're going to understand their unique needs, and then also not treat them differently than someone else, than a heterosexual couple. So with those conversations I've had with friends and family and other individuals in the community, it became very clear that there was nothing like this right now, where people could really go and understand and look up businesses that were pride friendly. And then there was also no businesses educating, or there were some grassroots organizations educating local businesses, but there was no streamlined education for businesses at large across Ontario or Canada. And then there was one organization kind of doing it in the States, but overall it was very limited, and there was no consistency across the board. So when we kind of identified that problem and the missing piece of that in the market, it was kind of seen as, oh my gosh, why doesn't this exist? And as a marketer myself, I said I want to market those businesses. I want to be able to say support local, but also support this business that's going above and beyond to make the most inclusive and adaptive environment for everyone, and who's welcoming everyone, whether you're BIPOC or LGBTQ or 2S or or female or anything, and just creating more inclusive environments overall.
So do you find, and I know this is a startup, right? You're just getting going. Do you find that businesses are reaching out to you at this point, or are you still reaching out to them? Are you still looking for them? And what is that process like? What does that entail?
So right now we aren't reaching out to any businesses. We actually received such an overwhelming number of businesses inquiry at the very beginning when this launched later in the summer, and it was amazing. But we were still establishing our board, we were still establishing our volunteer teams. So the response showed that our depiction for a need was correct, and that people wanted this, and they wanted to do better, and they wanted to learn better, and they wanted to reach out to the community. But then and now it was like, hey, now we have to do all this work to prepare and get the training out. And of course, with COVID-19 and the pandemic, and many of those businesses either facing full closure or partial closure or layoffs. Many of the businesses that wanted to get involved were like, I want to be a part of this, but all I can do right now is make sure my employees, are up to date with all of the policies we have in place for new masks and for sanitization. And so it was one of those things where it was like, I want to do this, but let's wait till we have some normalcy back into our life. And we were kind of on the same page with that, which, my volunteer teams, which we're entirely volunteers at this point because we lost all of our funding. So our volunteer team, same thing, they're trying to keep their businesses alive. They're trying to keep their families afloat in these turbulent times. So it's just every single day taking a step forward and identifying that, every day we receive an email of a business that wants to get involved across Ontario, of someone that saw a post or, was looking for something like this and then found us. And so every day we receive an email of a business that wants to get involved.
So tell me, what does it mean to be Pride certified, and what is the process that an organization or a business goes through in order to receive that certification?
So businesses reach out to us and they apply. They reach out with what the interest. We send them the information back about what this looks like. It's based on the number of employees that you have, because of course we have to train your leaders and your upper management, to which that would have training packages to educate their employees. So it is based on that. We do kind of look at what exists now. Our team looks at what the business is currently doing. What industry they're in, because we do tailor the training to the industry. Because when it comes to different industries, the way you the problems and situations that you might have with an employee dealing with a LGBTQ2S client in a fitness facility is very different than how you would be dealing with someone in a bar or restaurant. So, as well as a salon, or, all those different services. So tailoring the training to that is really important to us. So we look at what the industry they're in, what type of clients they work with, have they worked with LGBTQ clients before, what is their motive for wanting to do this? Because not that everyone has ulterior motives, but we don't want this to be a PR stunt for somebody. As much as it is a great way to showcase their brand, we want this to be something that they truly believe in and culturally want to do, because our brand's associated with it, and it's really important that our views are aligned. And that was something my board of directors and I talked about a lot, which is how do we identify who is the person contacting to us? Is it someone in their inclusion team, or is it someone in a leadership role? Is this happening from a top down? Because if the top of the organization isn't buying in, we don't want to have to be there to convince them that this is important. If they don't know it's important, then that's a cultural problem, and the organization needs to fix that before we get involved. So it's about creating that change, but also making sure that people have the buy-in and see the worth of doing this. And that was what I found absolutely incredible with the number of organizations that I spoke with, was they saw the value in it. They saw that, yes, of course, we're gonna purchase this training, and we're going to teach our staff, and we're gonna help our employees be better, and we're gonna help them understand why this is important, and we're gonna do a press release, and we're gonna get marketed, and we're gonna get showcased as this organization doing this. But they saw that they wanted to be a part of that, and they wanted to do it for all the right reasons, because they saw that I have an employee who is LGBTQ, and I want them to know that we believe in this and we're supportive, and I want them to understand that of course we are, they know that, but I want to even go the extra mile so that they know that we have their backs, and that we have the community's back. So it was interesting to see kind of everyone's buy-in and support to that, and it just shows me that we're not all the way there yet, but we're going in the right direction towards a more inclusive environment.
So you also say there's a need right now for more activists who are, looking for ways to create change across the country. Talk to me about what you mean by that.
I think we saw this in great measure through the Black Lives Matter movement. When we were in preliminary conversations about this business, and we had, the business had been started, but it hadn't been publicly launched, and we're talking with members of BIPOC organizations about what they were doing and why they were doing it. But we saw obviously the uprising of a number of BIPOC organizations, and a focus on Black owned businesses in our community, and people wanting to go support those, and also more people speaking out. And I thought, one, wow, how it's kind of crazy that this hasn't existed for the past few years, and there is this crazy perception that Canada doesn't face any level of racism, and that was really being called on, saying, yep, we do. Canada isn't perfect. We're just because we're not that bad doesn't mean that we're that good. So it was really interesting to see that, and that really even for us created some change in the organization about how do we not just make this more inclusive for gay, lesbian, trans individuals, and Indigenous people, but how do we make this more inclusive for people who are Black, and people who are Spanish, and people who are Indian, and how do we make this inclusive for everybody? And I was able to speak with a number of people who work pretty heavily in the two-spirited portion of that, and they're very passionate about Indigenous rights, and we were able to speak about what that looks like. And I was able to speak with some individuals who work in BIPOC organizations, and what change they believe they need. And for this year alone for me was just, a wealth of learning, and, hearing all these people who are passionate about this, but, didn't have the venue or the space, or didn't feel the right to speak up. And now, every day I go online and I see something new. I see something new people are sharing about and teaching about and exposing. And some of it's hard to watch, but it's all very real and raw. And it's incredible to see people, especially a lot of young people, really, taking a charge to want to showcase change. And I was able to join the first ever diversity and inclusion committee for the chamber. So we're the only Canadian chamber across Canada, and myself and several other individuals that, we meet every month, and all we do is talk about how do we make the chamber more inclusive? How do we create change for what is an organization that has been seen as, white and male centric for generations? And how do I, for me, I serve with privilege. I am a white, middle class woman, and being a woman is not always the easiest thing, but I have so much other privilege. And I was raised by parents who made me believe that I had that privilege and I could do those things. So I feel very strong about what I could do, and using my privilege to make a positive change for those who maybe don't. And I really love all the change that happened this year. And I think that we're gonna see more and more stuff happen every year. And I just hope, aside from COVID, I think that was probably one of the most incredible things to see in what was a turbulent time, was people just finding a positive way to create change.
You talk about your board of directors and your volunteer team. Are you currently still looking for more to fill volunteer spaces within the organization? And who are the types of people that you're hoping to bring in to represent your organization?
I mean, we're always welcoming volunteers. It's very interesting, because everything I've learned in business was to not have so many voices in a room that it becomes too polluted to actually hear one thought, or becomes too complicated to carry one idea out. But when it comes to talking about diversity and inclusion, we need to have as many voices, with as many perspectives, with as many experiences that we can show. I mean, my experience is so different than what someone else's experience as gender fluid or transgender, or as someone who's Black and queer. And I can never understand that. All I can do is best listen and make sure our training applies to them, and just listen. And while I know my experience, and I know my experience as a cisgender queer woman, I also know that my partner, she is less femme than I am. So her experience has been very different. We've faced some discrimination with her. She's gone to the bathroom before, in a woman's bathroom, and she has longer hair, but if it's tied up in a bun and a hat, she's been told to leave the bathroom and been completely discriminated against before. And seeing that happen fumes me. That still happens. That happens here, right in Kitchener-Waterloo. And it, when that happens, you just need to take it back and say, okay, how do I take this anger and this frustration and this pain and turn it into something positive? And that's why, I'm looking for volunteers who have a perspective. I'm looking for volunteers who have a voice, or even if you're not ready to share that voice, but to be a part of the conversation, because we're only looking to make more positive change. And the more people who want to be a part of that, the better it is for the whole community.
I love that you say, you choose to take your anger or your fear or your pain and channel it into passion and positivity, because that's what these interviews are all about, inspiring others to take that negativity and turn it into a positive. Anything else you'd like to add?
I mean, just thanks for having me today, and I love what Heartbeat Tape does. I've always loved it. I love when I drive by and I see someone they have their little sign on their yard, and we get to see more and more of those yard signs with Black Lives Matter, and people have really been really showing their support for the things that matter. And it's a great organization, and it brings the right conversation around during what is such a hard time, which there is so much positivity and great things happening in this community. And let's keep focusing on that, because at the end of the day, we're all going to come out of this stronger, and we're going to create a strong economy and a strong, inclusive environment. And I love the city. I love Ontario, and I'm very passionate about making it better.